the States where my family lives. So I was in New York, and we were driving by, and I saw this sign on a restaurant. It said like, Joe's Burgers and Fries, finger fucking good. I was like, wow, like, I guess you really can see everything in New York City. I guess it's like, man, like, I guess I shouldn't be surprised, you know? And then I was trying to like understand, you know, like how do you interpret that? Like, finger fucking good. Like, is it like the burger is so good? I'm like, oh, I'm so grateful, burger. Like, I'm just gonna like finger fuck the burger? Like, is that it? Or is it like the fries? I'm like, oh, these fries are so delicious. If you're so good, you must know how to satisfy a woman. Just please, just do it, you know? And then later we drove by, and I was like, oh, finger licking good. It said, it's finger licking good. I was like, all right, that makes sense. So first I finger fuck the burger, and then I lick my fingers. So, makes sense. Now it finally all makes sense. Yeah, so I'm a Russian Jew who grew up in Alabama. I don't know why it's funny. I guess Jews are just funny. So, you know, as you can probably guess, my childhood was a little bit mixed. Some mixed experiences. So, for example, at one point when I was in second grade, I was like 8 years old, and my mom decided it would be like a very nice, like, cultural experience to bring a home video to my Alabamian, you know, second grade classroom to show my classmates. And what she brought, it was this video of like a trip we'd taken around Moscow and St. Petersburg when we visited Russia, you know, in the summer. And there was all these nice scenes of like, you know, the Winter Palace and the museums, you know, and like the beautiful like architecture, and me frolicking topless in a fountain out in public. And back in Russia, like just in Europe, at least at that time, it really wasn't a big deal for a girl to be shirtless. Like if you're like 6 years old, there's nothing to see, right? But in Alabama, a 2-year-old toddler cannot swim without a top in a swimming pool. So like kind of polar, you know, opposite views of that. And like, I don't know which culture got it right or wrong. All I know is the sound of my classmates like laughing and shrieking in horror is probably the reason I'm up here tonight, seeking the approval of a crowd of strangers. I'm gonna try to get that approval without reenacting the fountain scene, but you know, we'll see how this goes. That being said, however, I did recently actually reenact the fountain scene, and it was my mother's fault again. So basically what happened, let me go back to my other paper. Yeah, so basically we went swimming at the YMCA back in Alabama, just, you know, a few weeks ago when I was there. And afterwards, my mom, my daughter, and I went to the family change room. And for some reason, the family change room is right in front of like the weightlifting room, not by the pool. So I don't know. We'll discuss that later. That was a weird choice. But anyway, so we went in there, and first my mom and my daughter had their shower, and then you know they're leaving. And as they're you know walking out, you know I hear my mom like you know I hop into the shower, so I'm washing, and the water's loud, and I hear my mom be like Masha, Masha. So I'm like I step out of the shower to hear her. I'm like, yes, Mom? Yes, Mom? And then, like, you know, the door is wide open. My mom was holding the door open, so the entire weightlift room was, you know, speechless, except for, you know, one guy who dropped the dumbbell on his foot. He's like, ow! And I was like, what, Mom? And she's like, I just wanted to remind you to lock the door after we leave, so no one comes in and sees you naked. I was like, thanks, Mom, thanks, you know, a little more trauma, you know. Thanks. And yes, back to like, why is the family shower room, it's like a small individual, like single family change room, open, like why is it next to the weightlifting room? Like, shouldn't that be next to the pool where there's actual children? Like, you know, are there like guys weightlifting with their father-in-law and they're like, okay, Steve, let's go take a shower together off to the family change room, like, odd choice. Let's see if I'm missing something. Yeah. And so, like I was saying, I'm Jewish, and I'm also part of the Near North Voices choir. And actually, we're going to be performing on September 23rd, Sunday, for Yom Kippur. It's like a major Jewish holiday, so we're doing, we're singing the song for the service. And I'm kind of busy. It's been a little busy with like my two kids and whatever. So I was like, I don't know, maybe I should skip it. But like, it would be weird because I'm like the Jew of the choir, right? I mean, also like the conductor is Jewish and the co-conductor is Jewish. So I guess controlling the weather and the media was just not enough for us. We got to take over the choirs as well. But I'm the only like just simple like plain old member Jew. And I mean, Yom Kippur, basically, it's the Day of Atonement. So you're supposed to like recognize what a piece of shit you are and feel really bad about all the horrible things you've done all year long. So I really should go, right? Because like there should be someone, at least one person there who genuinely hates themselves. And who can like just genuinely wallow in guilt and shame for all of their sins. Honestly, most of which were not even worth it. At least, this year they weren't. And someone's got to take on all the guilt for all the choir's, mistakes, right? So I guess I'll go, but I don't know. I don't have time. Actually, like all my self-hatred and like my oppression and feeling of being like inadequate, I don't really know where it comes from because like it's not from lived experience, right? Because other than of course the two people who brought me into the world and were supposed to love me unconditionally, but other than that, people have treated me pretty decently. Like I'm Jewish, but like I look white, right? So like I've never experienced racism. And I mean, honestly, if people did find out I was a Jew, the worst thing that happened is they tried to save my soul. It's okay. And the only time I felt oppressed as a woman was by Taiwanese kindergartners. And this is true. I taught English in Taiwan for a year. I taught abroad. And people always told me, oh, well, if the kids aren't listening to you, it's just because you're like a young woman and not like a big, strong man, right? Like an older man. But I think it was just me. Like, I'm just not good at like controlling children. Like, I'm kind of an extreme case of that. Like, basically one of my 5-year-old students in Taiwan came up to me and was like, "Aw, teacher Masha, you're adorable." Which, like, is very telling of my relative positioning in the social hierarchy. Like, that a 5-year-old would say that. To be fair, though, Taiwanese kids are old beyond their years. At least in the school where I worked. So one time they had me observe a preschool classroom of 2-year-olds. And you might have been in a preschool classroom before, you might have some concept of like a room full of 32-year-olds. It gets a little noisy, a little rowdy, right? They're falling, they're crying. These children sat absolutely still and silent for the entire 30-minute English lesson. One time, one little boy turned around and whispered something to his neighbor. The teacher came by with a meter stick, and I was like, oh shit, why did you do that, Payne? You're gonna get us in trouble. She came by, she smacked it on the desk, like right next to, like it was close to me. And so I sat silent, I didn't move for the rest of the class. And this is true if any one of the children, like the 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds, tried to speak Chinese to each other instead of English, we were instructed to threaten them that they would have to spend the night at school with a very large dog. Which was not really good for my dog phobia. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like dogs. Like, I've never lived with a dog, so I don't know what they're trying to communicate to me. So if a dog is barking at me, I'm just like, I don't know what you're saying, but it sounds like you're trying to kill me, so I'm just gonna walk the other direction. Basically, if I was a character in a Disney movie, you would immediately identify me as one of the bad guys. Because, just think about it, in any Disney movie, if someone's walking past a puppy, and they're like, oh, here, sweetie, here, little guy, they kind of pet it, you're like, here's the good guy, that's the hero, right? Like, think about it, like, it's kind of the good guy. And if someone walks past the puppy, they kind of scowl at it, and then they shoot it, like, that's your villain, right? So, and honestly, I don't care that it makes me a bad person. Like, I genuinely resent dogs. I resent their superior status in our society because any dog, an adult dog, can walk down the street anywhere in town and just lift its foot and just urinate anywhere. Like, I want that kind of urinary privilege. Like, what the hell? And they get away with other very questionable behavior. Like, what if I was in my front yard and you walked by and I was like, hey, I don't like the looks of you. You get away from here. Get away before I bite you. You don't belong in this neighborhood. Get away. Like, what would happen, right? To be fair, most dogs who do that are on a leash. But like, if I was doing that and I was on a leash, I don't know if that would like improve your experience very much. And dogs do it all the time. Like, we just have to take it. And then like, also like if a dog, like if the owner is there, if the dog owner is there and the dog is barking at me, oh my god, this drives me crazy. Dog owners do this all the time. They're like, Sparky, you naughty dog. Don't do that. Stop barking. Come on, Sparky. Hush now. Hush now, Sparky. That's not very nice. Don't bark at the nice lady. The dog doesn't give a fuck. Like, that doesn't, like, I've never seen a dog respond to that in my entire life. That's just some, like, show you have to put on to, like, pretend like you're trying to, like, stop them barking. But really, by the tone of their voice, basically what they're communicating to the dog is like, that's right, good boy, Sparky, good dog. You showed that dog-hating bitch, yeah, you scared the shit out of her, good boy, Sparky. But the only good thing about dogs is sometimes I feel validated by, I skipped too far ahead, I'm gonna backtrack. And my son, he used to have some problematic behaviors. So like, if he, quick second. If he ran headlong at another kid and started like yelling at him and like, I don't know, licking him maybe or sniffing his butt, and all I said was like, no, bad boy, Dima, stop that, bad boy. How do you think that would go over with the other moms in the park? Sometimes though, so that's what we're meant to be. Sometimes it is reassuring to talk to dog owners because like I can complain about my kids, right? I'm like, he's so loud, and yesterday he just like climbed on the table and ate half the cake that was, for my friend's birthday. He's just like making messes and peeing on everything. And the dog owners, they really get it. They're like, oh, I know it, I hear you. It's just a tricky age. They get easily overexcited. Like, I promise you it gets better. That's okay. The problem is, the difference is the dog owner, if they're really struggling, if they can't figure that dog out, like, I mean, honestly, someone I know did this recently. They were like, this dog, he was just problematic. He was hard. So we just found a nice home in the country. He can run free and frolic. I'm like, can I do that? Like, can I find a nice home in the country and then like get an upgraded child? Like, I don't know, just try again. And she's like, yeah, the new dog is just delightful, just a delight. I'm like, I want a delight. Like, why don't I get a delight? Anyway, so as you can tell, I have kids. And like, I'm really open and vulnerable about what dicks they are. And I'm just tired and overwhelmed all the time with them, right? I mean, and recently I was looking for some parenting advice. I mean, I'm always looking for parenting advice, but looking for something, and I found this source. This is this is real. You should look this up if you have children. She's really good. This site is called Mother Flipping Awesome. And so I was like, wow, I love her advice, so I'm going to find her Facebook group and join it, So I found it, but underneath there was a group called Furniture Flipping Advice, before and after. I was like, oh, another, parenting advice group. Like, this is for when my son starts to flip the tables and the armchairs, right? Like, he's basically already there. This could be very, very useful, before and after. Maybe before, nail it down, and after, how to, glue the armrest back on. Apparently, this is about buying and reselling furniture, so did not know that. But it really, I think what's going on with my son is he just has this, crazy energy, right? It's just, incredibly energetic and hyper. Because, last week he was sick for a couple of days, and when he's sick, he's, actually a normal human being. At worst, he would just sit there and, poke his sister a couple of times and just go sit down somewhere. So, I don't know if it's legal to keep your kid sick all the time. I should research that. Yeah, and yeah, like recently someone in his karate class, some mom was like, oh, like he and his sister, like I brought her along, and I was like, oh, they're like two peas in a pod, so sweet. And I was like, oh, okay, well, thank you, but you know what, like they're not doing too well in that pod together. There's a lot of fights going on in that pod, like one pea is pushing the other pea, trying to get him to fall out of the pod, smacking them against the wall of the pod. There's just no space in that pod for two peas. So like they're arguing over who's the best pea in the pod. Like how about we just stop skipping on pods and get separate pods for these two peas? Yeah, I'd love for them to move out of the pod. So yeah, so we tried karate, like I was saying. Everyone is like, try karate for your active boy. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll try karate. So maybe at least his ass kicking will be a little more like directed and organized and disciplined. But it's really not going well. Like he just refuses to actually like do the actual kicks and punches, right? Like for example, they're teaching this roundhouse kick or kick, and he'll just call out to me like I'm sitting over on the bench. He's like, Mom, look at me. Look, I got a kick. It's much better than the real kick. Look. Like he literally was like, Mom, look, it's better because I use both my hands and my feet at the same time. And then like he was doing warm-ups, and like in the middle of warm-ups, like they were doing push-ups, and this is how he does a push-up. He's like, Mom, this is so easy. I could do like a million of these, and they're like, touching their toes. Like, this is so easy, just telling the whole classroom. And then when they're doing like, the self-defense part, the self-defense techniques, so they teach them how to, get out of the hole, and then they're like, and then as soon as you're out, run as fast as you can, and call for help, or, yell fire or something. He's like, no, I'm just gonna turn around and punch him in the face. I'm like, yeah, great. You're like a 5-year-old, and that's, he really thinks he's gonna get away with that. So, yeah, and two weeks ago, he actually told a story. He like paused the whole class to tell the story. He's like, guys, my friend at school, he takes karate too. And he said that when he was 5 years old, he was a black belt in karate. And one day, a grown-up stranger attacked him. So my friend kicked him in the ball. And then my friend took out a knife and stabbed this man and killed him. He killed him. So I'm like, kicked him in the ball. So I guess this guy lost his other testicle when he was, lost it to another 5-year-old karate master, the previous year or something. Anyway, so he talks a lot. He talks, primarily. And like one time the sensei was like, I appreciate that, your son participates in class. I was like, yes, verbally, mostly verbally. But yeah. All right, well, I'll just finish off, I guess, with a little story. So recently I got some short tree logs for my kids to climb on, and I just left them sitting in the driveway for a bit. And one day, my daughter was climbing on one of the logs, and it seemed kind of unstable. So I went to move it, but when I lifted it up, I saw something that was just like out of like a freaky nature show. Basically, like I just saw these things like writhing and moving. I was like, what the hell is this? Eventually I realized it was a rat, and inside the rat was this like family of maggots who were like just eating it from the inside. So I was like, oh my god, this is horrifying. But my daughter was coming. She was like coming over to me. I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, am I gonna like vacuum it up? Like, I don't know how the hell you get rid of this. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna roll that log right back on top of the dead rat and just like pretend I never saw that. And I put it right back. And then like 2 weeks later, I lifted the log again, empty, nothing, like not a trace of anything, just empty, driveway. And I was like, that is so beautiful. Nature just did its work. Like it was just phenomenal. Like it's all gone, it's clean, it's pure, the life cycle is ready to start again. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? That's what I want for myself. Like, I want to be recycled back into the ecosystem. So I've put it in my will that when I die, I want my family to put me under a stump on the driveway. It might take a few stumps, park the car. Might be a little tricky. They'll have to learn to, like maneuver around me. But I just can't imagine a more beautiful way to go. Thank you very much.